Uruguay, you have the conservatism of Latin Europe, which also produces an extremely secular society, but all the same, one with tolerance, but surprisingly, robustly traditional values, even though in Uruguay, you're very likely to run into the average person who will laugh at you if you bring up Jesus to them. And in Switzerland, it's quite secular today as well. And it's the same deal, except not Latin European, but it's either, French, German, or Italian, which would be Latin European technically, but the part of Italy that Switzerland draws inspiration from is in the north, and that's very Germanic. That kind of Italian life has a great deal of Germanic influence for obvious reasons. So I think that what America can have today in terms of legit conservatism is absolutely nothing, because it does not have this sort of homogenous community structure that's necessary for this kind of legitimate conservatism. If your country needs godly politics, then that means it's having problems, because it means people are living in anguish. If your country does not need appeals to God and politics, that means it's doing quite well and people can self-manage and family units are cohesive and they function quite decently on the basis of a pro-social community, community system, not just a single community. It's the system, different communities organized within the same national framework. So I think that it's really interesting to see what works and what doesn't. But I think that America is always going to be very dysfunctional going forward, because there is no national culture, there is no national language, there is no national identity, there is conflict, and conflict produces desperation. And when people are desperate, they very often go, "Oh God," and that's where you get Christian politics on the right and the left from. By the way, a lot of people on the right will say, we need to bring back Christianity to promote social conservatism so the family can be bolstered. And then the saying comes, it always comes in one way or another, the family that prays together stays together. But if one looks at one of the most religious communities in America in terms of actual church attendance rates, Black Americans, they have an illegitimacy rate of almost 80%. And then other groups that are more religious than average, such as, say, Hispanics, even though they're not a single group, it's very heterogeneous, but you get the idea. They also have higher illegitimacy rates than average. So this idea that somehow Christianity is going to solve all the problems or reinvigorate the family, the idea that a lot of American social conservatives talk about, it's not borne out by what actually happens.
Yeah, but no one's arguing that Christianity solves all problems. What people would argue is that for many people, Christianity is superior to what else would replace it. And I'm surely even you would acknowledge that. For many people, Christianity is superior to its possible replacements.
Oh, sure. No. To them, it is. But my question is, what kind of Christianity would you get in today's America by and large? There is this idea that things could go back to a more traditional day and age in which you had a Christianity that was very patriarchal and so on and so forth. That would have to be what happens if there's going to be some sort of conservative social revolution on the basis of Christian thought. But that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The women aren't going to go back to that sort of very submissive lifestyle. A lot of men simply don't have the interest in lording over women in order to make something like that work, even if the women wanted it. And the way the economy functions is such that in order for people to have what's considered to be an acceptable standard of living, they're going to have to do a lot of work, and you can't really have this traditional state of affairs such as one would see in the 1950s or even way before that in a modern society where most often both parents are going to have to work, or you have a lot of single parent households, particularly ones headed by women, in which case the woman obviously has to work. So it's really, I just think this traditional era cannot be gone back to. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Right, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything. Let's say that you want to belong to a community that is dominantly homogeneous. Pretty much the only way you can do that in a big city in America is to either go to a church or a synagogue.
That's true.
I mean, that it is completely, racially, socially acceptable to go to a church or a synagogue that is 98% white. And there's no other organization at which that is socially acceptable.
That's
so
correct.
Let's say you want to belong to a community where being demonstrably gay is socially unacceptable. Your only alternative is to go to a church or a synagogue. Let's say you want to belong to a community where just guys get together, right? pretty much your only option is to go to a church or a synagogue. Let's say you want a community where guys meet regularly just with guys, and that your only choice is a church or a synagogue, or I assume a mosque. Let's say you just want to feel something, right? So there was an article in The Onion about some atheist walking past listening to gospel music and wishing he could believe in some of that nonsense. Well, I mean, Christianity produces amazing music, amazing art, and amazing feelings. Like, people get a payoff when they go to church. It is meeting their needs for comfort. And so people want to feel alive. So when I was growing up as Seventh-day Adventist, our church services were stodgy. They didn't stay that way. Starting in the 1980s, there was this celebration movement where going to church was a lot like going to a rock concert. I mean, you really feel something, and you go to a rock concert, the ticket's going to set you back $100. But you go to a church, and you don't have to pay admission. You can experience all the things that people experience at a rock concert, but in a safer environment where people aren't doing drugs and they're not, high on alcohol, and people aren't getting raped. So people want things that religion provides. People, may want to feel free of the diversity agenda. People may want to feel free from the homosexual agenda. People may want to feel free from the transsexual agenda. People may want to feel free from the assault of wokeism. People may just want to hang out with people like themselves. I don't know any more effective community formation than what's going on in organized religion in America.
The thing of it is, a lot of what goes on in organized religion in America is not subverting wokeism